Andrew Gower finally spoke out on more details of Brighter Shores, his first new IP since creating the original RuneScape. In this video, I will be highlighting all the important bits, so let's talk about it. If you want to keep up with all things Brighter Shores, consider subscribing as I'll be covering all the news surrounding the game. Leaving a like really helps me out as well, and there's actually an official Brighter Shores Discord server, so if you're interested in joining and staying up to date with everything that's going on in there, I will leave the link in the description down below. Now on to the good stuff. Andrew Gower did an interview with gamesradar, and honestly, it started off quite spicy, as it spoke on its monetization model. Arguably one of the most controversial things surrounding any game, and something especially RuneScape 3 players are particularly familiar with, but this familiarity with microtransactions will not be a part of Brighter Shores, as Gower stated that he isn't too bothered about attracting investors for the game. The dev team only consists of 8 people, and the game is more aimed at bringing in players and building a flourishing community. Now some of you might be skeptical about this, but if you own the company yourself and have a net worth of hundreds of millions, at least according to Google, it's quite easy to not care about investors. He has enough money to develop the game and pay the people that are involved with it. Even if it flops, he probably won't notice it financially. And this actually also coincides with his views on microtransactions stated in this interview and previous ones. Andrew Gower doesn't believe in the fact that real-life financial status should carry over to any video game. Meaning that if you're rich in real life, you shouldn't have an advantage in a video game. And he said to gamesradar that he believes that too many MMOs nowadays gotten way too out of hand with microtransactions and too focused on them, which makes me wonder if he means RuneScape by that. Anyway, the business model will be a free-to-play game with a premium pass. However, this premium pass will not function like most premium passes in video games, but more so as DLCs or expansions. They are a one-time payment, so on release there will be a premium pass, a one-time payment to unlock everything the game has to offer, and throughout its life, whenever there are new expansions, there will be new premium passes. Now that we got all the boring business stuff out of the way, let's dive deeper into what makes Brighter Shores the game that it is. Brighter Shores is described as a chill and cozy video game, a more casual approach to the MMORPG genre, focused more on the journey than the destination. The latter being the part most MMORPG players would say where most of their games actually get good. If you play 100 hours, that's when the game truly starts, or when you get a maxscape in RuneScape, you can finally play the game, which I always found a silly approach, as a game should be good straight away and the journey itself needs to be fun, yet the destination also has to be compelling enough to actually take that journey. Striking that balance will be very difficult, but I'm happy Gower is aware of this trope within gaming and will hopefully see this back in the actual design of Brighter Shores. Thankfully, he already stated, plain out, that he's really keen on creating a great starting experience for newer players, something I feel like RuneScape and many other MMOs are actually lacking, requiring you to watch huge videos to truly understand what to do. Speaking of design of Brighter Shores, the game will run on its own engine, just like RuneScape does. Quite a few comments online wondered why it took 10 years to develop another game. It can't be good if it's taking so long, but if you make your own engine, it makes a lot more sense that it does. Judging by the interview, it sounds more like the initial idea wasn't actually making a new MMO 10 years ago, but to create a nicer to use engine to create games in. Yet, Gower also realized that the only way to actually prove that the engine is as good as he claims it is to make a game within it, which is going to be Brighter Shores. So no, it hasn't been in development since 2014, it has actually been in development since 2017. The visuals of the game itself are based off a tabletop RPG. The old school, analog, in real life type of RPGs people used to play, and still do, before they turn into video games. However, an important fact to mention is that unlike a tabletop RPG, this game will not be turn-based. It will be a real-time MMO. Assuming I understand it correctly, the combat will function more like RuneScape 3 than old school, as it will have abilities, but more on that later. Regarding it being WASD movement or point and click, this wasn't specified in the interview, but Gower did mention that he absolutely loves point and click games, so I'd assume it will follow suit with RuneScape's movement system. So with that tabletop RPG concept, I personally have seen a lot of concern about it, as it makes the game seem small due to the room-based structure shown in the trailer. This will be how the game looks, emulating the tabletop RPG feel. So it will kind of function like Dungeoneering or the Gauntlet, yet you won't see the previous room you were in, and it will most likely be a lot bigger than those ones. A better term for these rooms will be map chunks, like we know in RuneScape. Yet you will be locked to them in a way where you need to use one of the exits in the north, east, south or west to go into another room or chunk. However, a great thing is that we can actually use magic to transport ourselves around the map, so it won't be too much of a walking simulator. One of the major advantages of this system is that they can easily instance each room to the right number of players that are in them at the time being. This will make it so that the game never feels too crowded or too empty. And this room structure is also found on the world map itself, as you start off in one room and then the more rooms you explore by going in them and clicking on things, the more will be mapped out. Now the content in these rooms themselves function very interestingly, as they are mapped out for you to spend a set amount of time in them. This is either for it to not get boring, for when you would have to bank or go to a shop. See it as filling your inventory on RuneScape, and once it's full, it's actually the best or most efficient time to go to the bank because the room is designed for it, instead of you feeling like you miss out on a good encounter. An interesting concept in my eyes, something I'm very curious to see in practice, but can also feel very systematic where it feels more like a room clear simulator than an adventure, but we'll have to wait and see. When you look at the trailer, it's undeniable that the game looks like RuneScape and borrows a lot of its concepts. Gower stated that they tried as much as possible to do things that hadn't been done before, but that certain things also just work. Why reinvent the wheel when it's already there? Plus, certain staples kind of make fantasy games work. So no, it will not be RuneScape reimagined, but it will definitely share a lot of similarities. One of them being the professions similar to RuneScape skills. The skills are linked to one another. It's not specified, but safe to assume that mining will be linked to smithing and fishing to cooking. All very standard concepts. However, one thing that I did find very interesting is that there will be a focus on giving you new ways to train your professions more quickly. Assuming the game will learn from RuneScape, you will not be at the same type of tree from level 60 to 99, but instead you will unlock multiple types of trees along the way. If you played the archaeology skill in RuneScape 3, I'm assuming the progression will be more like that than something like woodcutting. Gower mentioned that the game will also nudge you to do different activities, as the most efficient option keeps changing. Instead of making 1,000 swords, you would be encouraged to do something else. I wonder if this means that the method's XP rates vary from day to day, or per request of an NPC, or simply that you unlock enough methods through your path that the newest thing is always the best thing to do. When RuneScape, cutting yew trees isn't more efficient XP than cutting maple trees, due to the slower cut rate. Yet of course, the trade-off is you make more money cutting yew trees. It will be very interesting to see how this will work in Brighter Shores. A very interesting point is that you won't start off with all the skills. You will unlock them by progression through the game's episodic structure. One of the main reasons for this is to improve the starting experience and reduce the feeling of being overwhelmed. I mean, let's be honest here for a second. If you start RuneScape and see all the skills, it can be rather confusing on what to do. So Gower intends to start us off with just enough to get you hooked and interested and feeling to unlock more, and then unlocking other skills in a more natural and gradual way whilst you play through the story. Another big aspect of the game will be its class system. Something you will actually not decide until you already are on your way with your journey and are a bit familiar with the game. Where normally you would create a character and choose a class system straight away, even though you have no idea about what it actually entails. Instead, you first start off as a simple guard, and along your way you will have to make your decision. This is really cool in my opinion, as it can be very hard to decide whichever you choose, as you're kinda locked into the playstyle once you do. However, your choice of class will affect your gameplay to an extent and encourage you to make multiple characters to experience all of it. Kind of. As every class can do range, melee and magic, just like in RuneScape, but the main difference is the type of magic they can do. For example, the Cryo Knight have ice magic, Guardians have nature magic, and the Hammer Mages have storm magic. So you're kind of locked into that playstyle, but at the same time not as much as most class-based MMOs. So how does that all apply to combat? Well, by the sounds of it, we won't get an overcomplicated combat system. The whole game is meant to be a fairly relaxing experience, so a system where you constantly have to dodge, press this ability and then that ability and then this ability isn't the aim. Yet, there will obviously be an eye for interesting combat encounters where the main focus lies with mastering your class and dedicated playstyle. The variety more so comes from using different weapons with different special attacks and more things to come. Something we won't see at launch just yet, but will come at a later stage. We will have the classes, but they won't be as fleshed out as they eventually will be. And that's all they wrote. For the full interview, check the link down below, join the official Brighter Shores Discord to keep up with all the information, like and subscribe to stay up to date with everything I will be posting, and my name's Chevelric, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Goodbye.